How's it? This is Dominic Oliver, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Hello and welcome to Joburg Today. My name is Tumi Tlapo, bringing you the best of what's going down in and around Johannesburg. The City of Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba's first State of the City address highlighted on the city's safety, cleaning up the city and making sure that Johannesburg becomes the leading engine room to South Africa's economic growth.
During the Johannesburg State of the City address, Executive Mayor Herman Mashaba mentioned that he wants Johannesburg to be the engine room of South Africa's economic growth. And here are some of the reactions for people who attended the soccer.
There's actually a major shift because during the budget adjustment, you are very, very constrained because of the law. You can't do major changes. Now we have more changes, big changes, drastic positive changes. For example, we're going to spend 60% of our capital budget in underserviced areas so that we can cater for the people that the mayor described as the forgotten people of our city.
I think this is really a culmination of our work up to date, since August 2016. It's been a very hard job, I think for the mayor and his team to having to inherit a lot of issues. But I think rightfully he has pointed out, we're not looking back at our shoulders anymore. We need to focus forward and, deliver services to our residents. I think from a public safety point of view, we really need to bring back that law and order. We need to keep and create an environment where our community members are feeling safe, where their members of their family can grow, their children can say, you know what, I live in Johannesburg and I'm proud of it.
We welcome the fact that the executive have considered on the demands that the EFF have made from the election manifesto, and we have done so here in council through the motions we have raised in council which have been adopted and they became resolution of council. We are happy that they have considered on insourcing and ensuring that all contracted workers in the city are insourced and employed permanently with benefits. We are happy that the city has considered on the issue of building hijacked buildings, that those buildings that have been hijacked and the city must attach them and convert them into social housing program to ensure that we cater for the people of the inner city.
I think as the African Independent Congress, we are not overwhelmed or happy by the speech that the mayor has given us today. He has rather given us what the previous council had done, and he had told us about everything that was delivered, that was supposed to be delivered by the previous council. What seemed very far-fetched is the fact that he was talking about we have a safer city, which we all know it's not true.
I was worried that in fact it was a very angry speech and it didn't actually reflect on the progress that the city of Johannesburg has made. Of course, we are a city that confronts a lot of challenges, but reality is that this is the city that has been investing the highest in terms of capital infrastructure investment. So whilst he says that you need 170 billion, what he's not saying to the people of Johannesburg is that the budget I've published is actually reducing the infrastructure investment. What he's not saying to the people of Johannesburg is that we are reducing the benefits in terms of basic water provision and taking it away from the people of Johannesburg as a progressive tax system. What he's not saying to the people of Johannesburg is that in fact when you look at the expanded social package, the indigent register and the benefits that we're allocating are significantly reduced from the benefits that were there in terms of the city's expanded social package policy.
I'm Pomashiho for Joburg Today.
As executive mayor of the city, I do not get to pick and choose my responsibilities.
What's up? My name is Christopher Jafta, and you are watching Joburg Today.
Like us on Facebook, joburgtoday.tv, and follow us on Twitter at Joburg Today. In his first city address, Mayor Herman Mashaba also referred to issues that were covered in the South African Cities Network's latest State of Cities report. But CEO of SACN, Sithole Mbanga, says it's still early days and that the mayor is still working with an institution he inherited from the previous administration.
He has inherited an institution for which he still needs to formulate his own strategy to respond to the issues that are highlighted in the State of South African Cities report.
Is his plan, his 10-step plan, one that is realistic and achievable?
He focuses more on the immediate issues, which I think is a good thing, but on its own is not sufficient, because managing a city also requires that you are growing a city. And in the instance of Johannesburg, you are managing a city now, which is also equally growing. So those two things are happening at the same time. And they need attention simultaneously and more or less with the same level of effort. I think the mayor still has to think about the future, the long term. Those are the kinds of things that I think the mayor still requires an opportunity to address himself to and articulate what his strategy is going to, how his strategy, which he has based it on 5 pillars. So in those 5 pillars, the question is, how do you then move from the immediate into the long term? And I think that's not just the problem of Johannesburg. That's the problem of local government in South Africa generally for the last 15 years. How do you create jobs? How do you make sure that there's financial sustainability? And those are the long-term issues for me.
Now, when he came to office, he made a promise, a vow, which was to clean up the city. Corruption, drugs, and poor service delivery. Has he managed to deliver?
I think it's too early to make the call. He does say that he's working on a script that was written by the previous administration. And so I suspect he's also insinuating that he should not be judged by what he did not script in terms of a strategy. Do remember, though, it's not what you do, it's how you do it that matters. And that, for me, is what will differentiate the past administration to the current administration. The style, the approach, and the posture that the current administration assumes should be what differentiates it from the previous administration.
Now, let's talk about economic growth. He has put a very, very big number. He's actually pushing for 5%.
Yeah.
In a very short space of time.
Yeah.
Is it an achievable number?
Bear in mind that the speech is being made in the context of a very difficult global and national economy. I mean, it's the issues of growth cannot only be addressed by a municipality, a Johannesburg, all on its own. Our system of governance is very interdependent. So part and parcel of what's going to be required for him to be able to meet the 5% in 4 years, by the way, because that's what it is. It implies he's going to have very good relations with provincial and national government, because they are the ones that are the policy determinants and the administrative determinants of what's going to happen on the ground. 2, it also implies that you have a very good relationship with civil society. And I think previously, and he says that in his speech, that he's not the most popular person. And so he's not had a very good relationship, I think, with the other spheres of government. Unfortunately, he has not been immediately well received by civil society. He speaks thirdly then, which is the third thing that you need, a very good relationship with the private sector. He comes from the private sector. He speaks fondly of the private sector, but I think it's still to be tested that he's got a good relationship with the private sector. And again, I think he still needs to be given time to deliver. As I'm saying, it's going to be difficult to deliver 5% economic growth in 4 years, and I think I'm looking forward to that case study. You know, it's something that I think academic institutions would love to see happening.
Now, one of the issues that was left out in the speech was the issue of renewable energy. We're talking about the eco-mobility issues. Why do you think that is?
I have no idea, and I would loathe to think that that's not part and parcel of his priorities. I mean, it will be extremely hurtful. I mean, 2 years ago, you had the Paris Agreement on climate change. That was further rectified last year towards the end, but there was also the United Nations had endorsed a financing mechanism. But importantly, all these global and continental and, in fact, South African local institutions that are responsible for policy have all endorsed the fact that local government must be at the center of delivery. And they have, in a way, put in place a set of agenda items. One of them is the response to climate change and creating a sustainable world. It's a pity that it's not reflected in his speech. I hope it's an error, and I hope that when he articulates his 5-year strategy, the issue of environment will come back.
Say you're the advisor to the mayor and his administration team. What would you tell him?
Reports indicate that South Africa's gap between rich and poor continues to grow, so the gap needs to be closed. How do you close that gap? You have to engage in spatial transformation. You have to bring people back into areas of efficiency, make them live closer to where they work, make them feel included in the city, not excluded. There's no point of continually developing poor people where they are, when in fact what you're really supposed to be doing is to integrate society, make it cheaper and more efficient for the worker that works for someone that is rich to be at work efficiently with less costs, in other words, transportation cost amongst other things, but make them feel humane. And I think for me that is more important. I think that will be the outcome of what any South African city ought to be doing.
I'm Zoni Lengubeni and you're watching Joburg Today.
Director and political analyst at Ipsos South Africa, Maury Harris, says businessman turned politician Herman Mashaba's mayoral term has been an intense and sharp learning curve this far.
I also think that he has to, get a little bit more au fait with the business of politics and make sure who's where in the show and who he can rely on and who not, before that promise of really having an open door policy will be the truth for the residents of Gauteng.
Now, normally we tend to experience, especially around council meetings, a lot of unruly behavior and a lot of disruptions, but that's not the case in this particular instance.
I think we should not forget about the national picture in this instance. And the fact that the president was booed on Monday at the Kusatu rally in Bloemfontein, I think that probably had quite a dampening effect on a lot of ANC supporters to really understand that, look, we're probably in more trouble as a party as what we thought we are.
Now, going back to some of the key points that he actually put forward, a lot of which was around bread and butter issues, yes, particularly the uplifting of poverty. Now, is this something that you actually see him being able to do when you compare it to, let's say, the previous administration's attempts at fixing these issues?
I think he is already making progress, and I was very impressed when I read through his speech. The only party that he mentioned by name was the EFF. It was not so much a political party speech as it was a list of the things we are busy doing and the things of what we are going to do. And in his speech, he listed quite a number of things that they have already done in the first 9 months. And something else that I was very impressed with, he didn't say the previous administration made these mistakes and listed all the mistakes. He said we inherited these issues without mentioning the ANC administration and said this is what we're now doing to fix them. I think he was very sensitive about that because we need to keep in mind that Mr. Park Staal was seen as a very, very good mayor. And a lot of the studies that we did just before the local government elections last year showed Herman Mashaba and Park Staal almost on a par. It was very difficult. If the people of Joburg had to decide and not the parties in the council, we might have had a different mayor because Park Staal was very, very popular. But Herman Mashaba, I think, decided to take the good things and go forward with that and not criticize people by name or by party.
Now, let me take you back real quickly to the point of EFF, that he actually named it out of all the other coalition
Yes.
parties that was there. Does that mean that this coalition is starting to head towards the right direction?
I think he was very sensitive about the EFF because we must remember that the EFF is not so formally tied in as the other parties are. They said from the beginning they will support him if they agree with him. They will not support him regardless. And I think he was very quick to pick up on that and really point out the things that they have contributed, which they applauded in the meeting this morning as well. If you ask me how long this will last, I think it will last as long as he makes good on his promises to do something for the poor people in Johannesburg, because the EFF definitely sees the poor and the downtrodden as their hunting ground for votes.
Now, he's taken a very hard line when it comes to corruption, crime, even the efficiency that has been criticized for being incredibly slow and at times non-existent within the city of Joburg. Is what he's doing now effectively gaining him the support that he needs to make the changes that are necessary?
Again, it's early days. 9 months is probably not enough to say anything about it. But I can just point out two figures for you. If we look at the delivery of basic services, currently the Johannesburg City Council is rated as 47% on this. It doesn't sound a lot. It's not even 50% yet. But it was something like 25% before the DA administration. If we look at the safe and efficient public transport, is at 48%. It was also in the 30s. So yes, he's making changes. What I do not think he's doing effectively enough is to talk about these changes. I think he needs a communication plan to inform people about what he is doing. And as a city council, you really have the opportunity to do so every month with the statements that are going out, even if they're going out electronically. You almost have a captive audience that you communicate to, and I do not think the communication program is working yet. It depends how well he sells the things that they are doing in the right way to the voters, whether he will get the support.
You get the impression that he's had to take 3 steps back to take 1 step forward. Is he and his team in the right direction in getting Joburg to where it needs to be?
I think they've taken the first steps up the staircase. I think it's a very long staircase. He does not only need the support of his own constituency and his coalition partners, but he will also need the support of the ANC, because they are a very strong player in this city. And also he needs to work together with the provincial government, which is an ANC government. That is probably one of the biggest challenges for him going forward. I do not think that people necessarily know where the authority of the city ends and that of the provincial government starts. For instance, he was talking about the clinics, and the clinics that are open now for longer. Clinics are the local authorities' responsibility, but hospitals are the responsibility of the provincial government. So you can see there's a lot of overlap, and he needs to get their support also to come to their part of the bargain.
Hi, I'm Mpho Pops Madikwani, and you're watching Joburg Today.
And that's all for today. For more on the city, do check out our playlist. From myself, Dumi Tlapo, and the Joburg Today crew, it's goodbye.